Some houses don't want to be lived in, some rooms don't want to be opened, and some secrets refuse to stay buried. Tonight, we step into one of those places, a place where silence screams, shadows move, and every heartbeat could be your last. This is the story of Blackwood Manor. Built in 1854 by the wealthy Blackwood family, the house has seen better days. Now it's up for sale. But something wicked this way comes. The new owner will inherit more than they bargained for. As the sun sets on Blackwood Manor, the spirits within begin their nightly ritual. They move from room to room, shaking the beds, rattling the chains, even interacting with the living. And as the night goes on, the activity only grows stronger. Is it all just a game? Or is there something more sinister going on here? Something dark and evil that refuses to be ignored. This is the scariest house on the market, and you're about to see why. Coming soon to a screen near you. The rain had not stopped for hours when Adil's car pulled up to the gates of Blackwood Manor. The house stood on the edge of the forest, half hidden behind twisted trees and iron fences that looked older than time itself. Lightning flashed, and for a moment the mansion revealed its full form. Tall, crooked towers, broken windows, and walls stained black by years of storms. Adil had inherited the manor from a distant uncle he had never met. Everyone in the nearby town warned him not to step inside. People who go in don't come out the same, an old shopkeeper whispered. But Adil didn't believe in ghost stories. He laughed them off, thinking only of the money he could make by selling the property. The gates creaked open on their own, as if the house was already expecting him. Uneasy, he parked his car and stepped out. The moment his foot touched the muddy ground, the wind howled louder, carrying with it a faint whisper. He froze, convinced he had heard his name. Inside, the grand doors groaned as they swung open. The air was heavy, thick with dust and something else, something rotten. Cobwebs stretched across the ceiling, and the smell of damp wood filled his lungs. His flashlight cut through the darkness, catching glimpses of torn curtains and old portraits with eyes that seemed to follow him. Adil tried to shake off the chill crawling down his spine. It's just an old house, he told himself. Yet deep inside, he couldn't ignore the feeling that the manor was alive, watching, waiting, as the doors slammed shut behind him with a deafening boom. His heart skipped a beat. He wasn't sure if the house had trapped him or welcomed him, and from the corner of his eye he saw it. A flicker of movement in the shadows above. A low growl echoed through the room, sending shivers down his spine. Whatever was up there seemed to be getting closer. Adil's breath hitched in his throat as he turned to face the sound. The growl grew louder, more menacing. And then, silhouetted against the dim light from the hallway, a pair of eyes glinted back at him. They were cold, reptilian eyes that held a terrifying intelligence. Frozen with fear, Adil could only watch as a massive shape began to emerge from the darkness. Its skin was the color of old parchment, wrinkled and stretched tightly over its bones. A long, prehensile tail whipped back and forth, knocking over a chair with ease. But what truly stole Adil's breath away was the creature's face. It was humanoid, yet undeniably animalistic. Fangs dripped from its snarling mouth, and its eyes burned with an otherworldly fire. The stench of decay and death rolled off it in waves. With a Herculean effort, Adil tore his gaze away from the creature's face and looked around for a way out. But the door was nowhere to be seen. Its place was a solid wall of darkness. Trapped with no hope of escape, Adil braced himself for the creature's attack. Adil stumbled back from the mirror, his chest tight, his breath uneven. He blinked, and the pale figure was gone, only his terrified reflection staring back at him now. He wanted to leave, but the hallway behind him felt alive, so the shadows themselves would swallow him if he turned his back. Gathering what little courage he had, he moved forward, pushing deeper into the manor. The hallway ended at a set of grand stairs curling upward into darkness. The old wood moaned beneath his touch as he climbed. With every step, the air grew colder, carrying the faint smell of smoke and something metallic, like rust or blood. At the top, another hallway stretched before him, lined with doors. Some stood open, revealing dusty rooms with broken furniture, torn drapes, and shattered glass. Others remained shut, silent. One door, however, stood out. It was larger, carved with strange patterns that twisted into symbols Adil didn't understand. Unlike the others, this one was locked tight. The brass handle rattled but refused to turn. He pressed his ear against the wood, listening. At first silence, then a sound. Soft, steady. A whisper. No. Breathing. His heart pounded. Someone was in there. He leaned closer. The breathing grew louder, ragged, desperate, as though the thing on the other side had been waiting just for him. Then came the scratching. Fingernails, claws, he couldn't tell, dragging across the inside of the door. Suddenly a voice erupted, clear and sharp. "Don't open it." Adil jumped back, spinning around. The hallway was empty. No one was there, but the warning lingered in his ears. The locked door shuddered once, twice, as if whatever was trapped inside was trying to break free. Adil did the only thing he could. He ran. But with every step, the thought gnawed at his mind. If that door was locked from the outside, then who locked it? Adil stumbled back from the mirror, his chest tight, his breath uneven. He blinked and the pale figure was gone. Only his terrified reflection staring back at him now. He wanted to leave, but the hallway behind him felt alive, as though the shadows themselves would swallow him if he turned his back. Gathering what little courage he had, he moved forward, pushing deeper into the manor. The hallway ended at a set of grand stairs curling upward into darkness. The old wood moaned beneath his touch as he climbed. With every step, the air grew colder, carrying the faint smell of smoke and something metallic, like rust or blood. At the top, another hallway stretched before him, lined with doors. Some stood open, revealing dusty rooms with broken furniture, torn drapes and shattered glass. Others remained shut, silent. One door, however, stood out. It was larger, carved with strange patterns that twisted into symbols Adil didn't understand. Unlike the others, this one was locked tight. The brass handle rattled but refused to turn. He pressed his ear against the wood, listening. At first silence, then a sound, soft, steady. A whisper. No. Breathing. His heart pounded. Someone was in there. He leaned closer. The breathing grew louder, ragged, desperate, as though the thing on the other side had been waiting just for him. Then came the scratching. Fingernails, claws, he couldn't tell, dragging across the inside of the door. Dot. Suddenly a voice erupted, clear and sharp. "Don't open it." Adil jumped back, spinning around. The hallway was empty. No one was there, but the warning lingered in his ears. The locked door shuddered once, twice, as if whatever was trapped inside was trying to break free. Adil did the only thing he could. He ran. But with each step, the thought gnawed at his mind. If that door was locked from the outside, then who locked it? Adil burst through the front doors, stumbling into the overgrown garden. Moonlight filtered through the leaves, dappling the ground in silver. The manor loomed behind him, a silhouette against the night sky. He dared not look back. He didn't want to see the pale figure standing at the top of the stairs, didn't want to hear the rasping breath or the fingernails on wood. He just wanted to escape the suffocating dread that seemed to cling to him, to the manor. Suddenly, a twig snapped. Adil froze, his blood turning to ice. Footsteps, someone or something was following him. He risked a glance over his shoulder. Nothing. The garden was empty, silent. Had he imagined it? Quickened his pace, then broke into a run, crashing through bushes and leaping over gnarled tree roots. The moon, his only guide, led him to the far corner of the garden where a wrought iron gate stood ajar. Hope surged through him. He was almost free. He stumbled out onto the road, collapsing against the stone wall, gasping for breath. Then he heard it. A low growl that seemed to rise from the earth itself. The growl became a roar, shaking the very foundations of the old manor. Adil looked up, his heart sinking. The moon, once his guide, was now hidden behind thick, swirling clouds. And in the distance, he saw it, a single flickering light, two glowing eyes staring back at him from the darkness. Adil's footsteps echoed as he fled from the locked door, his flashlight beams shaking across the cracked wallpaper and broken floorboards. His throat was dry, his chest heavy. Every instinct told him to leave the house, but the main doors were far behind. Somehow, he felt the manor wouldn't let him out so easily. At the end of the corridor, he pushed into a room that looked like it had once been a library. Tall shelves leaned under the weight of old, dust-covered books. Torn curtains fluttered. even though the windows were closed and the smell of mold was stronger here. In the center stood a large wooden table, its surface scratched and burned. He tried to steady his nerves by speaking out loud. "It's just an old house," he whispered. His voice sounded too small, too weak. As he swept the flashlight across the shelves, something made his blood freeze. A shadow moved between the books. He whipped the light back. Nothing. His breathing grew louder, filling the silence. Slowly, he stepped toward the shelves, shining the beam into the gaps. Dust swirled, but the space was empty. He almost laughed nervously until a whisper touched his ear. "A deal." He spun, the light cutting across the room, and froze. Standing in the corner was a woman. Pale skin stretched tight over her bones, long black hair covering half her face. Her dress was torn, dripping with something dark that stained the floor beneath her feet. Her head tilted unnaturally, her hollow eyes glowing faintly white in the dark. Adil stumbled back, heart pounding against his ribs. The figure didn't move. It only watched him, whispering his name again, softer, almost tender, like someone calling a child. Then, with a sudden twitch, it stepped forward. The books fell from the shelves, and Adil realized he was no longer alone in Blackwood Manor. What secrets does the house hold? Let's find out. In this story, we have a man named Adil. He's exploring an old abandoned house with his friend Maya. They heard rumors that the house was haunted, but they didn't believe in ghosts. That is until the woman in the corner. The woman's ghostly figure vanished as suddenly as it had appeared. One blink and the corner was empty again. Adil staggered back against the table, his flashlight trembling in his grip. His heart hammered so loud it almost drowned out the silence around him. Almost because now the silence wasn't empty. It was expectant, like the house was waiting for him to take the next step. Forcing himself to breathe, he searched the library for answers. The shelves groaned when he touched them, dust spilling down in clouds. Most books were ruined, their pages stuck together or eaten by mold. But one volume caught his eye, a thick leather-bound ledger tucked high on a shelf. The leather was cracked, but the clasp was strangely polished, as if touched often. He pulled it free, coughing as dust filled the air. On the cover, faint letters carved into the hide. Blackwood Family Records. His fingers hesitated. Strange chill ran through his arm, but curiosity overcame fear. He opened it. The pages were filled with names, dates, and short notes. At first, it seemed like a family tree, recording births and deaths. But the notes grew darker. Taken by the house. Lost in the East Wing. Never returned. The handwriting grew frantic in later entries. The ink smeared as if written in panic. And then he found the last entry. Written in thick, shaky lines, "Do not unlock the room. The thing inside is not our blood. It is not human." Adil's breath caught. His mind went back to the locked door upstairs, the sound of claws scratching at the wood. His hands shook so badly the ledger slipped from his grip, falling open on the table. For a moment he thought it was just the draft that flipped the pages, till he noticed every page now showed the same words written over and over in fresh red ink. "You should not be here. To be continued." What do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more scary stories. I'll see you soon. Hello everyone, welcome back. Gilles stood frozen in the doorway, his flashlight beam dancing wildly across the symbols carved into the wood. The words on the ledger glowed faintly in the dark, as if written only for him. Adil slammed the book shut, his hands trembling. His throat felt dry, and every instinct screamed for him to run, yet his legs moved on their own, carrying him back into the hallway. The manor seemed to guide him. The whispers returned, echoing through the corridors. Upstairs. Upstairs. Each syllable crawled under his skin, against his will. Adil found himself standing once more before the locked door. He turned the brass handle, pushed the door open, and stepped inside. The air was colder in here, his breath misting before his face. The sound came again, the scratching sound. Not breathing this time. Growling. Low. Guttural. Hungry. His hand shook as it hovered over the brass handle, till it rattled suddenly, violently, as if something on the other side had sensed him. Adil stumbled back, heart hammering. And then, silence. He leaned in, straining to listen. Nothing. Just as he turned to leave. A whisper seeped through the wood, deep and hateful. "Open." The entire door shuddered, dust spilling from the frame. Claw marks began to scratch themselves into the wood, long and deep, as though invisible hands were tearing at it from inside. Adil's flashlight flickered wildly. Then the whisper came again, sharper, louder, shaking the very air around him. "Open me." Suddenly a crack split across the center of the door. A thin, pale hand, inhumanly long, fingers bent like broken twigs, forced its way through, grasping at the air. Its nails screeched against the wood as it reached for him. Adil stumbled backward, his scream caught in his throat. His only thought was to run, but his feet felt nailed to the ground. The hand twitched, curling toward him. And then, with a snap, withdrew. The door slammed shut with a deafening boom. Silence. And in that silence, Adil realized the truth. The thing inside didn't want freedom. It wanted him. Thank you for watching. Adil's legs finally obeyed him, and he bolted down the corridor, his flashlight beams swinging wildly over the decayed wallpaper. His breath came in ragged gasps, sweat mixing with the damp chill of the manor. He didn't stop running until he crashed into another hallway, this one narrower, its walls lined with cracked plaster. For a moment, he leaned against the wall, trying to steady himself. That's when he felt it. The wall wasn't cold like stone. It pulsed faintly under his hand, warm, almost alive. He jerked back in shock, shining the light across the surface. At first, he saw only peeling wallpaper and mold. But then, shapes began to push outward from beneath the plaster. Faces. Dozens of them, stretching and writhing like trapped souls trying to claw their way out. Their mouths opened in silent screams. Their eyes bulged, following him wherever he moved. Adil stumbled back, heart racing. One face pressed so hard against the wall that its lips broke through the surface, whispering in a wet, broken voice, "Join us." The others began to whisper too, overlapping, a chorus of agony filling the hallway. Some cried, some begged. Others laughed, hollow, echoing laughter that scraped against his nerves. Adil's flashlight flickered, and in the stuttering light the faces seemed to move closer. Sliding under the plaster like insects beneath skin, he sprinted forward. But the hallway seemed endless, the whispers chasing him with every step. He stopped suddenly as the light fell on a massive portrait at the end of the corridor. It was a painting of the Blackwood family, gathered together in regal poses, but the faces were the same ones pressing out of the walls. Their painted eyes glared at him with hatred, their smiles twisted. And then, as he stared in horror, every figure in the portrait slowly turned their painted heads toward him. Adil staggered back from the portrait, his pulse thundering in his ears. The painted eyes still followed him, even when he closed his own. The whispers from the walls grew louder, forming words that chilled his blood. "The house is hungry." He ran, desperate to find a way out. But every hallway twisted back into another. Staircases led him to the same rooms, and doors slammed shut behind him on their own. It was as if Blackwood Manor was shifting, reshaping itself to keep him inside. His flashlight dimmed, and in the fading glow, he noticed something horrifying. The wallpaper wasn't peeling. It was skin. It was pale, stretched, and cracked. And the faces pressing through it weren't just echoes. They were real. Trapped, their mouths moving as if begging for release. When his light flickered again, he saw thin veins crawling through the walls, pulsing like veins under human flesh. The realization hit him like ice. The house was alive, didn't just haunt people. It fed on them. Every scream, every terrified soul it trapped became a part of its structure, its walls, its foundation. The faces in the plaster weren't memories. They were the last residents. Adil collapsed to his knees, gasping for air. No, it's not real," he muttered. But the house answered. The floorboards beneath him groaned, then split, and pale skeletal hands clawed their way up from the cracks, grabbing at his legs. Their touch was freezing cold, their grip impossibly strong. He kicked free, scrambling back. The whispers turned into a roar, shaking the entire hall. "Stay, be ours." Adil sprinted blindly, throwing himself through the first open door he found. He slammed it shut behind him and pressed his back against it, his chest heaving. Silence. Then from the darkness of the room, a child's voice spoke softly. "You can't escape. The house already chose you." Adil Adil whirled around, his heart pounding, and that's when he saw them. Dozens of eyes gleaming in the dark, each one reflecting the same twisted glee. There was no escape. He was trapped in a prison of his own making, held captive by the very darkness he had sought to uncover. And as the shadows closed in, he knew this was only the beginning. Blackwood Manor had claimed another soul, and the feast was just beginning. The air in the nursery was stagnant, thick with dust motes dancing in the faint beam of Adele's flashlight. He moved carefully between the overturned chairs and broken toys, making sure not to disturb anything, not when everything around him seemed to be watching. The rocking cradle swayed gently, though there was no breeze and the air was still. He shone his light inside, empty. Yet he could feel the energy in the room shifting, coiling around him like a living thing. The wallpaper here was covered with faded stars and moons, but in the dim light they seemed to twist into grotesque faces leering down at him. Then he saw it. A thin line snaking up the wall from the cradle, almost invisible. As he watched, it pulsed once, twice. Adil knelt beside the cradle. Memories flickered through his mind, impressions rather than actual recollections, like fragments of a dream. A young girl humming a lullaby, cradling a wooden doll. Her face, streaked with dirt, was pale and gaunt. He remembered the rocking, the rhythmic creaking that had lulled so many children to sleep, only to have their souls trapped forever within the manor's walls. The parasite, whatever it was, had been here for a long time, centuries perhaps. It had grown, taken root, and poisoned the very foundation of the house. But how? How did it survive? What was it feeding on? He looked down at the floor. A small dark stain had spread outward from beneath the cradle, creeping along the floorboards like a spreading disease. Then he noticed the boards themselves were faintly pulsing, rising and falling with something akin to a heartbeat. A chill ran down Adele's spine. The floor was alive. No, not just alive, awake. It was breathing, and the parasite wasn't up here. It was down there, beneath the house, beneath the town, below where the earth met bone. Memories flooded his mind again, vivid and horrifying. Screams echoing through the night, men digging feverishly in the darkness. They unearthed something vast and terrible from the cold, hard clay. Something that should never have been disturbed. A collective gasp as they pulled their prize from the grave. They brought it here to the manor, to bind it, to keep it from ever escaping. But it grew, worming its way into the foundation, twisting the timbers and consuming the life essence of anyone who entered, leaving behind only husks, who eventually withered away or met horrible ends. The parasite fed on the fear and sorrow of the townspeople, growing stronger, hungrier with each passing year. It was ancient, older than the town, older than the country, older than time itself. It existed before history began and would continue to exist when history had ended. And all this time, the house protected it, shielded it from the world, feeding it, guarding it, preserving it, until now. With a sudden jolt, Adele realized why the house hadn't been abandoned long ago, why no one dared enter it, why no one dared come near. The whispers in his head grew louder, more insistent. Give it what it wants. Give it what it craves. Give it us. The floor beneath the cradle burst open, splitting wide, and a horde of pale, eyeless faces erupted from the ground, clawing and scratching at the air. Their mouths hung open, silent screams frozen on their lips. He stumbled back, knocking over a chair. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. The faces in the floor twitched, coiling together in a writhing mass. From the depths of the pit, he heard a voice, raspy and chilling, yet somehow sweet like honeyed wine. Finally, someone new to play with. Can help us, can't you, Adele? It knew his name. It had been waiting for him. The door at the end of the room burst open, and a shadow fell across the floor. He whirled around, relief flooding him. The monster was here. Maybe it would kill the thing, banish it back to wherever it came from. But then he saw the glint of moonlight on fangs, and knew with a sickening certainty that whatever was out there was unhere to save him. It was here to claim him. Whatever it was, it had been kept prisoner here for a very long time, but now it was free. The whispers rose to a crescendo, shaking the very foundation of the house. Join the heart. Become one of us. Adil's lungs burned as he stumbled back into the main hall, the whispers shaking the manor like a storm. Every portrait glared at him. Every wall pulsed with life, and the floorboards writhed beneath his feet. His flashlight flickered and died, plunging him into darkness. Only the glow of lightning through cracked windows lit his way. And then, the great staircase groaned. The door at the top, the one with the symbols, burst open. Splinters flew as something crawled out. Long, pale arms bent at impossible angles, claws dragging across the walls. Its body was twisted, like bones had been rearranged too many times. Its face was worse. Stretched skin with no eyes, only a mouth that opened too wide, filled with rows of jagged teeth. The voices of the house screamed as one. "Feed, feed." Deal staggered back, heart hammering. He grabbed a broken piece of wood from the floor, though it felt useless. The creature crept down the stairs, each step echoing like thunder. Its mouth moved, and though its lips never matched the sound, the words poured into his head. "You are mine now." He ran to the front doors, slamming against them, pulling with all his strength. They didn't budge. The thing drew closer, arms reaching, its breath cold against his skin, even from meters away. Desperate, Adil pulled the old lighter from his pocket, the one he had carried since his uncle's funeral. His hand shook, but the flame sparked. He remembered the ledger's words. "It is not our blood. It is not human. Maybe it could burn." With a scream, he hurled the flame at the curtains. In seconds, the rotten drapes caught fire, racing up the walls. The manor shrieked, 1,000 voices howling in agony. The creature roared, stumbling back, its skin blistering under the growing fire. Adil kicked with all his strength. Doors burst open and the storm outside welcomed him. He ran into the rain as Blackwood Manor burned behind him, its screams echoing into the night. But as he looked back one last time, he saw it. A pale hand clawing through the flames, reaching for him still. The rain washed the soot from Adil's skin as he stumbled through the forest, branches whipping at his face. He didn't dare look back, but he could hear the manor, its screams carried on the wind. How long had he been running? Hours, maybe days. His clothes were torn, his legs raw, but he couldn't stop, not until he was sure whatever was inside that house wasn't following him. Not until the burning stopped. Finally, the trees thinned. The rising sun peeked through the clouds, painting the sky in hues of gold and red. The forest ended at a dirt road, and up ahead, a farmhouse glowed with morning light. Relief washed over Adil, but before he could take a step toward it, a voice boomed in his head. "You can't hide from me. Adil, you are mine now." He spun around, heart leaping into his throat, but there was nothing there. Only the dark silhouette of the trees against the sunrise. Had he imagined it? Was he finally losing his mind? But then, a twig snapped behind him, and he whirled around, instinct taking over. There, between him and the road, a figure stood bathed in the golden light. It was tall, impossibly thin, and as it stepped forward, Adil saw its face, or what was left of it. Skin stretched taut over bone, eyes milky white, a mouth that promised pain. The creature shambled toward him, its claws scraping the ground. Terror rooted Adil to the spot. This was the end. The legend of Blackwood Manor wasn't just some story. It was real. Now he was its prisoner forever. But then, a flicker of defiance sparked in his eyes. No, he wouldn't go down without a fight. Adil lunged, the piece of wood raised high. He didn't know if it would break the creature's skin, but he had to try. Maybe if he drove the wood hard enough into that grotesque face, maybe if he could just make it bleed. As the creature lurched forward, he screamed at the top of his lungs,